Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich, and just in a few quick moments, I will have the interview with Ryan Zimmerman going again, just kind of going over the during the season, his off-season plans, and just some other stuff as well. So that's going to be the forefront of this episode. I will be doing my season review, not this coming week, but probably the week after. We are leaving for vacation, so I will be gone. So there will be no podcast episode probably for the end of the month, probably midway into maybe October-ish, a little bit before that. I'm trying to plan up some other interviews as well to see what digging I can do into the rest of the season, and then get ready for the off season, or getting ready for next season during the off season. So yeah, so sit back and enjoy. And I welcome back the voice of the Gary South Shore RailCats, Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan, thank you for joining me again on the show, and thank you for everything that you have done. The fan base really appreciates everything you do, and we hope that you're coming back next year.
Well, thanks for the love, Kyle. I enjoyed being on the show so much last time that I had to do it again, and I'm very, very fortunate to have built up such a great relationship with the RailCats fans. It's not something I take for granted, and it's a blessing to be back on the show.
Good. I'm glad. I know the off season is just a week old. But do you have any off season news? Anything particular?
Uh, well, my parents are moving. It's kind of it's my big priority number one right now. It's why I'm not in Vermont right now. I wanted to help them finish their move to an apartment out of the house I grew up in to a new apartment before I leave. So that's my big news right now. I'm doing that.
That's always fun. I spent my fair share of moving from my parents' house to an apartment to the house that we're in currently now in all a span of like 9 months. But moving is always the fun part. Well, I'm glad you
It's a
stuck around
grind.
to help them. I bet they appreciate that.
Oh yeah, it's always nice having a 25-year-old around who can lift things without feeling pain every time.
Right. So when you going back to Vermont?
So that's going to be at the end of the first week of October. I
Okay.
have a couple of things lined up with RSN, a couple of games lined up with Purdue Northwest, WJOB as well. I've got a friend's wedding to go to in Michigan, and then it's time to go to Vermont and to get back on the saddle with women's basketball.
Nice. I know that I saw that you were with Region Sports Network and you did the Valpo Michigan City game. How was that experience getting, I know you did some region football last year, but what about the region makes it so special sometimes? Because that's just that up here, football is just the region football and high school sports, they just love it up here.
Yeah, that's something I noticed right away when I started doing games with them last year. When I was in high school, my high school didn't have a team.
Mm.
So for them, soccer was like their football because that was the big fall sport. And I was actually on the team. So I didn't know what it was like to go to games as a fan. I didn't know what it was like to really experience a game day atmosphere like I've experienced while doing games in Hobart last year and then Valparaiso this year. I'm actually on the Valparaiso Chesterton game this
Oh,
week.
nice.
At the time of the recording, it's September 12th. The game itself is on the 15th. Obviously, that's in Chesterton, but I've just noticed the whole town rallies around the team. I had only really seen that on TV, when ESPN does a high school game, or I was a big Friday Night Lights fan growing up, and obviously Texas is Texas, and there's a lot of creative license that goes into that. But I didn't realize just how impactful it was to the community, which is so cool. That's what I enjoy most about it.
Yeah, it's definitely something special, making especially my when I was younger, my uncle, my dad, we'd go after our high school got knocked out, or the case maybe we would go all around different ones, go to the big games, semi-state, state, all that fun stuff. So it's always been an adventure for me when I was younger, freezing my butt off at the games in late October. But then when I got into
Fortunately, they put me in a press box. I don't have to do
well,
that.
luckily so far it seems like you've done the bigger schools. The smaller schools, sometimes they throw you up top of the press box, and it gets a little bit chilly up there, just from the
Yeah.
coaching experiences. So,
Yeah, so
um,
I've noticed at a couple of different schools.
yeah, I know Valpo has a very nice press box. That was actually the first press box that I was actually in when I started coaching. That was the first like real like, oh, I'm in a big time, press box here. It was a smaller school that played there, but it was just one of those. It was a fun experience. I know it's kind of nice and roomy up there, and they probably treated you very well up there.
They did. They had an incredible spread. That's what I'm going to remember most about it. Just
Yes.
going from working for the RailCats to the spread they had at Valpo High School, it felt very similar. So
Yeah.
once I saw that, I thought, oh, this is gonna be nice.
Yeah, the Crown Point has a pretty good spread too as well. That was just me knowing that from working with Region Sports. And that was the one big shell shock to me when I was working in media like that was the food, and they treated you like you were a king. So it was just that was the oddest thing to me, which took me a minute to get
Yeah,
used
it's
to.
good living if you can get it,
Well, they got to give you something, right? Um,
for sure.
But so getting into this season for the 2023 season, I know going into the season, it was big expectations. We were really looking at a big playoff push, and we did make a playoff push until a little bit. I think we were like 8 games out before we were officially eliminated. I think it was that Sunday. I forgot who we played. But before we get into like talking about that, what has been your favorite moment of 2023?
Are we talking on the field or off the field?
It doesn't matter either way.
Okay, I'll split it up. On the field, the best moments. There are a couple of really good ones, but I'd say the Jesus Mariaga walk off against Sioux
Mhm.
Falls was my top moment for me. Just the way that the team had been down big during that game. Jesus does what he always does, puts the team on his back, and then he caps it off with the double off the wall.
Yep.
Some inside baseball for you about that, which I think makes it all the more satisfying for me. Up in the press box, everybody thought that ball was gone.
I did
The
too.
horn played. The fans are going nuts. You just won a huge game that may have just turned your season around. And Jesus was kneeling at second base, praising the Lord, doing what he always does. I mean that is just like that's legitimately what he did. He got on his knees and pointed to the sky. But everybody thought it was gone. And our official scorer texted me after the game saying, "Hey, what happened on that last play? The horn sounded, so I just called it a home run." So the way I called it as a double. And I talked to a couple of people in the press box about it afterwards. Hey, what did you see? And they said, "Oh, it's an automatic double. Bounced off the warning track over the wall. It's an automatic double." So I think to myself, oh, I just called it as a double off the wall. I think it's still real material, but hopefully the camera blurs out where that ball really landed and try and hide it. And then I watch it back myself because the league posted it. Lo and behold, the ball hits off the top of the
Yep.
wall and goes right back down. So I had it right the entire time, and there were about three different ways other people saw it, but mine was right, which made it super satisfying.
Yeah, from where I was standing, because I remember very now vividly, I was sitting there, I looked, I go, it hit the wall, and I'm like, I thought that was gone. I'm cheering, I'm looking around, I'm like, why is he standing at second? He should be scoring. Like it's a home run. And then after coming back off down, I rewatched it and all that stuff, realized it was just off the wall. I mean, it's just crazy, just a couple inches, but either way, it's a walk off. And I think what we had, like
Yeah,
three this year.
we had three.
Yeah, that was. I think they were all at home.
Well, yeah, it's a walk off. They all
Yeah,
have
duh,
to
duh. It's been a long day. I've been up since 7, moving heavy stuff around all day.
I don't blame you. It's not a big deal. It was
Oh,
just me being a smart aleck. Don't worry.
it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes on that portion of it. But that was so. What was your uh off the field best moment?
So really it's a collection of moments for me. And I'm not going to go into specifics about them, but last year was my first year in pro ball ever. And I got thrown into it as a lead broadcaster. I didn't know what to expect. So during my time off, I didn't really hang out with anybody related to the team. So I just kind of did my own thing, and I enjoyed it, but it just felt a little isolating at times. But throughout this past season, I really feel like I meshed well with both the coaching staff and the players to the point that when we were on the road, we were hanging out all the time. I remember we all went out for Lamar's birthday in Winnipeg. That was really cool. Got to hang out with a few players during off days. They would always come up and say hello to me when I was just doing my own thing at the hotel. If we ran into each other at a certain town, they'd stop me, say hello. We'd have a brief conversation. I'd say it was the collection of those moments that really made the year for me. Because when you're in broadcasting, you go from job to job, or at least my experience is going from job to job. You want to build up relationships and try to get some sort of footing before you move on to the next thing. But this year, I really felt like I did a really good job of developing those relationships with both the players and the coaching staff to the point that we were all on the same page about a lot of things, and we all felt comfortable around one another, and it made me better at my job because of it.
Oh, nice. So I know when we talked last time, you said Chicago's your favorite quote unquote road trip to make. Was there any other, giving your second year go around, is there any other particular area that you really enjoyed going to?
Yeah, there were some really cool spots, but before I get into them, I want to give another shout out to Chicago in that this was the first time that my parents actually went to a game that I was calling on the road, which was super special for me. I've moved around a lot, and being so close to home, I'm glad I gave them that opportunity and they really enjoyed it. So shout out Chicago Dogs for welcoming them. I really do appreciate it. But really, there are a lot of really cool spots on the road. I really liked Winnipeg. Once you get past the border and all of the hassle that comes with going to a different country, you're right in the middle of downtown Winnipeg. The hotel's really nice, and you're around so many things. It's really cool out there. Lincoln, we were there during graduation weekend.
Mm.
And little known fact, Gio Diaz's cousin runs track at
Oh,
Nebraska. So they met up and they invited me to come along with them to Memorial Stadium, and I got to go on the turf. It was
oh,
so
nice.
cool. I got to see the inside of the athletic facilities. It was super cool. And also, Lincoln was still full of college students, so it made it that much more lively. Kansas City's always great. There's a huge shopping center right behind Legends Field. I got a lot of necessary shopping done. Um, I think those are some really good spots too. I like Fargo as well. I think the Fargo trip was dampened for me because I had one of the worst sore throats I've ever
That-
had. Um, I don't know if you were able to hear it. The first game in Fargo, about 2 innings in, I thought I was going to die. I was feeling so awful the entire time. It's a great area. I like it. I like the hotel, but just the fact that I was sick and that being beyond the city and the franchise's control just made the trip so much worse.
yeah, that's
I made it through though. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, you did power through. That was your cold was kicking in right when the first time you were on the show
Oh
was right
yeah, because
before
you
that
caught me on
series
the
ended.
off day
I
for
got
the
you on the off day.
series, and I was doing everything I could to treat this. And I get through the interview, I'm thinking, oh yeah, that went fine. I should be okay. One thing I forgot to consider, I was on the air with you for maybe 45 minutes.
Yep.
A baseball game plus pre and post game takes about 3.5.
Yep.
So
That was the point.
I didn't take that into account.
You needed the Dayquil right there next to you, so in between innings, you take a
Oh
shot of it
yeah,
real quick and keep moving
I had
on.
my ibuprofen handy.
Ibuprofen as well, yes. All right, so the biggest, I guess this season, we had high hopes of the season, and we just fell a little bit short of that. From my eyes, it kind of looked like a bunch of it was maybe inconsistency. I don't want to like downplay the talent that's on this team or downplay anyone specific, but what did you see that kind of maybe faltered the team a little bit?
Again, I hate to like throw anyone under the bus, so I won't. But collectively as a team, I feel like our biggest area where we really should have done a lot better was hitting with runners in scoring position. it felt like a rally was super predictable in the way that it was going to go. You get your first two runners on, and then strikeout double play. Just making up a scenario here. It felt like that every time. And you look at the stats. We nearly hit into 90 double plays this year.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really hampered us because you look back at missed opportunities throughout a game. You look at those scenarios here and there where it was close, and then the game either ends up being a blowout or it's a one run game. It doesn't matter. Just felt like those opportunities really changed the course of the game. And a lot of the times in our losses, we just didn't have those big swings.
Yeah. And you nailed it right on the head. We're actually at 90 double plays. I have point streak pulled up right here. So yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was high because I started counting the last week because we were hitting into a lot of them, and I got really frustrated about it.
Yeah, I think I took one game of where we were kind of talking about runners in scoring position, and I was writing down, whoever we were playing, their average and stuff. I think we went like 1 for 20, and they were like, like think 10 for 15 or something like this. So it was like a crazy, outrageous number, but I mean that was just consistently what we were, going through all year.
And it's frustrating because this
Yeah.
was a really talented hitting team. It just felt like the approach sometimes wasn't there or the luck wasn't there, some combination of the two. And we just kept, I guess, not capitalizing when we really needed to, whether it was early in our game or not. It just felt like the same story every time.
Yeah, and I think there was one game where the offense, or a handful of games, the offense was really clicking, and it really looked like we were, gonna. I know at the beginning of the year we were really well, and then just kind of all sloped down. After that, I mean, we didn't even the May and June are the only ones that we reached. Our my bad, May, July, and August, the only ones that we reached 10 wins in. And we had a
Yeah.
losing record except in May where we were 10-8, and then in September we were 2-2 with just 4 games left. But from last year, it really looked like the bullpen split. Big words hurts my brain. Really locked it down this year, I should say. And the starting pitching kind of faltered a little bit here and there. I know Cuello had a handful of big games, blowouts there. Francis was hurt for a while. I think Sheeks was hurt for a tad bit. The injuries as well, just rotating in, bullpen arms, that as well. You know, do you see much from the starting rotation frustrations at all?
Honestly, I don't think you're giving the starters that much credit. Yeah, you look at the bullpen, and at a certain point, you could just predict how the last few innings were going to go. Valdez in the seventh, Eisenbarger in the eighth, and Wilkinson in the ninth, and you knew that was going to get locked down, and a lot of the times it was. But I feel like starting pitching doesn't get enough credit for the job they did, and a couple of bad outings will really inflate the ERA and make it look a lot worse. But you take a look at how a lot of guys did, they were great. Obviously, I wish we could have gotten more out of Chris Irwin. He was just battling some injuries throughout the year, which I won't go into. Edward Cuello, for the first 3 months of the season, I thought he was our ace. He was our best guy, in my opinion. John Sheets threw in a bunch of really nice starts as well. Harrison Francis, when he's untouchable. Julio Vivas, it felt like he really picked it up late, and that was after he had been moved out of the bullpen. It looked like he was going to be put back in a high leverage late inning role until Irwin got hurt in Chicago, and then he was put into the rotation again, and he flourished. So I think the starters, we got beat up a little bit in certain games, and sometimes in a league like the American Association, you have to leave your starter in a little bit longer to conserve your arms. And I hate to use the term scheduled loss, but at a certain point, there are games where you're going to lose maybe 4 or 5 innings in, and you just have to bite the bullet, as unfortunate as that may be. And I think that skews starter ERA, but I think they did a lot better than a lot of people realize.
Yeah, I mean, going back and kind of looking, I guess the amount of innings that they've thrown is a big one to me. Only going 4 or 5 innings. Sometimes you have to burn through the bullpen a little bit quicker, and then with having the injuries and throwing bullpen arms at starting, I mean, it just seemed like a lot of those This year was just a lot of like the bullpen was coming in and just trying to finish the job, and the starters were just kind of
Yeah,
limping through the season a little bit. But I mean, they still have decent. I mean, Cuello's numbers went better. Harrison Francis actually had better numbers than he did last year on that portion of it. So I would say like the main people that were starting had better numbers, but like it was just like the overall staff in general.
yeah, and look, in the American Association, it's really hard to
Yes.
find pitching starters, especially. And I think our core of starting pitchers throughout the year really picked it up, and I think that kept us in a lot of games that maybe we shouldn't have been in.
That's fair. Um, so now I know you're in with the locker room a lot and around the guys and stuff like that. And um, I know Steve Montgomery made a comment about the locker room maybe not was a little bit toxic. It was coming around the fans as well, that things were kind of being misplaced a little bit, and that's why certain players left, like Woodworth, Lingua, and Cheeks. Was that really going on in the locker room? Or was it just more of a outside noise?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that I don't know about that happen in that clubhouse. And even if I did, I work for the team. There are
Yeah.
certain things that I
That
can't say, but even then, I have no idea what was going on. So I got nothing for you on that,
that
unfortunately.
that's completely fair. I just want to clear the air a little bit on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I get it. There's a lot of curiosity there, but
yeah, doing my little
got
digging,
nothing for you.
and that's fair. But with Woodworth leaving and Sheiks and Lingua leaving and all that, I was shocked by all of it because I was told that Sheiks was just planning on just riding out with the rest of the team, and then we had a game, and then I wake up in the morning or the afternoon because I was doing overnights, and it just kind of all went into shambles, and they were gone and stuff like that. How did the team react to that?
Again, I really don't know very much about it. I mean, obviously, I miss them. They were really cool to me when they were here. And I was rooting for Kane County in the playoffs when they were still in it. I'm still rooting for Sioux City. That's the team I hope to see win the American Association just because of Dan and Sheeks being there and everything that's been going on around the franchise itself. But honestly, there's a lot even deeper that I don't know that I can't explain.
Do you have from those three a memory or interaction that you would like to share just to get the kind of personality from them?
Um, yeah, this was a long time ago, but Michael Woodworth was one of the first people I met. Before the 2022 season, he was there early. He and John Sheeks drove up together, and then Sheeks had to go home because he had a wedding, and then he came back for the start of spring training. And Alec Olin was still on the team. He obviously was living at home at the time, and the Monday before spring training started, there was a field restoration project, and I was asked to go along and photograph it just so we could have a social media presence there. If the local paper wanted to get a couple of photos from me, then they could. So I was around them pretty much the entire time, and the way that they were talking to me, it felt like we had known each other for years, and we had a couple connections. Woody played at UConn. I obviously have spent a lot of time in the Northeast. He was in the New England Collegiate Baseball League the summer before I was. He was there in 2018. I was there in 2019. So we had a lot of stories to tell about our experiences there, and it felt like things clicked early. He's always been super cool to me, and all three of those guys were, and, in their own way. They're all three different individuals, and they all had three different personalities, and I felt like I clicked with all of them. But talking to Woodward for the first time before I met anyone else other than AO, it felt like, what, I feel like this is going to be a good fit for me in terms of the clubhouse.
That's fair. So during the course of the season, I don't think we talked about this when this happened, but we did get a new owner. Have you had a chance to speak with Joe at all?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to say that I have multiple times. In fact, after we played the Kansas City Monarchs in Kansas City, we went into the All-Star break. Joe was just there on business, and he invited me to go with him to a Royals game.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was one of the highlights of my summer. When Gio Diaz broke the stolen base record, Joe was on the air with myself and Zach. So he was around. He was really involved. I got to know him quite a bit, and I think he really does care about this franchise and restoring it to its glory days. Obviously, it's going to take time. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it definitely feels like he knows what he wants and how to implement that.
Yeah, I know I've seen him around multiple times. I just never had opportunity to talk to him because he was either talking to someone else or he was pulling a tarp on the field. I mean, he was out and about
Yeah,
doing a
I
lot of things.
remember
So
that. I was up in the booth and I see a guy in a gray sweater go down and pull the tarp. I'm thinking, wait, is that Joe?
yeah,
Oh
I
my God,
was
that's Joe.
yeah, I was
And
like,
then I
oh
saw your post about it on Twitter or X, whatever you want
yeah,
to call
whatever
it.
you want to call it now.
And I was looking at Zach. I thought, oh, I guess that was him. We were right.
Yeah, I was just sitting there nonchalant. I look up, I go, oh, he's pulling the tarp. It looked like he does. I mean, he's out and about talking with fans. Most presence I think the RailCats ownership has shown in years. So that's always a positive limelight. Um, has he is there any kind of future plans that he might have talked about that you could share, or is it just kind of been, just what's going on right now?
I mean, the season just ended. I think we're all just decompressing right now and taking a mental break. 100 games in a 3.5 month span is a lot. So right now he hasn't communicated with me about anything about next season, but I'm sure that's going to come soon. I don't know when, but it's going to happen.
Okay, that's fair. I just, maybe just Limelight said something, whatever the case may be. Looking into the offseason, I know with the American Association, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around bringing people on, releasing people, just because it's like basically a 1 year contract, and at the end of the season, you cut your ties. Basically, what kind of moves do you see Lamar making?
Whatever moves he feels he needs to make to strengthen his team. Honestly, I'm not sure what he's thinking. I just know the type of player he wants to bring in. I know he really prefers guys with a lot of affiliated experience. So I'm expecting a lot of those types of players to be brought in. But other than that, I have no idea what type of talents he's looking for. I don't know who he's trying to target on the mound. I don't know who he's trying to target at the plate. My guess is just as good as yours.
Okay, that's fair. Just I know that was the big thing was just talking
I
that
know that sounds like a very underwhelming answer, and I apologize, but
no,
I
it
know
makes
I just legitimately don't know.
I no, it makes total sense. Really the only person that really knows that is him and maybe the coaching staff, as well, maybe some of the players. I guess that was a big thing was like with Greeley and Cadell was, Greeley would have really good games and then he wouldn't play anymore. And then Chuck told me that it seemed like Lamar more wanted people with the affiliated experience, and with Cadell playing a handful of games in AAA, it kind of makes sense in that portion of it. And he's starting to bring those people in. I know.
Also, the
Uh,
pitchers just really liked throwing to Cadell, which was a big reason why he was getting a lot of those games. They liked his game calling ability.
I mean I mean, there's more to it than just your batting average and people you bring in, and there's obviously more to that than just what it
Yeah,
says on the
I love
paper.
them both, honestly,
Yeah,
and I think they both brought very unique things to the table. That's just why Seth was getting a lot more games towards the home stretch because the guys really like the way he called games.
that, that's a fair point. Um, who I know when we talked earlier, we were talking about DJ Wilkinson being, maybe a big surprise player. He hands down had to be the best pitcher on the team. I mean, you could probably even say maybe outside of Gio being the most consistent player on the team. But outside of Wilkinson, who maybe you've kind of drawn yourself to really watch and see what he's done. I'm saying, how should I say it? Not favored, but like his numbers or the way he's plays really intrigues you.
Honestly, there are a lot of guys that fit that bill, if I'm being completely honest, but I feel like Jackson Valera really intrigues me in that regard. Just ever since he was picked up in the middle of June, the way he was swinging the bat, I thought, oh, this is a really good contact guy. He'll get his singles, he'll get some doubles, but you can just guarantee whenever he goes to the plate, he's going to swing the bat and he's going to find a way to make contact. And then in the final 2 weeks of the season, he hits three of the longest home runs I've ever seen. That really surprised me. He was always fun to watch play. He was also a very, in my opinion, underrated defender. Obviously everyone has their moments on defense, but I feel like he just flew under the radar in terms of guys who had a really good glove and no one really realized it. So he's probably my pick for that. I really liked watching him, and I feel like his game really complemented the steel yard and complemented the rest of the lineup well.
Yeah, he kind of I think he's a little bit older. He kind of has that like carefree kind of. He's joking. I see him joking around with the first base umpire. He's joking around with the players. He just kind of
He
has
did
that
that with me a bunch
carefree.
too.
And then when it's, there was multiple times where, the pitcher's in the windup, he still has his mid off, but he gets it locked in and he's ready to go. I would say we had Tapia who played really well at first. I thought he was a heck of a defender, but then Valera comes in and he plays lights out at first. He can play third. He plays kind of all over the place. So, and he was that contact guy that just where you needed him to drop, a dime into a spot, and that's where he did it. The power, a lot of people are like, well, where's his power at? And I'm like, he doesn't really seem like that kind of hitter to be more just power, just contact, find the gap, find the holes, and then the power comes out of nowhere. So hopefully next year if he comes back, the numbers can be a little bit more higher in that power ranking in that portion of it. But he was a fun player to watch this year.
Yeah, he was just super consistent. He was one of the top run producers on this team, and he signed a month into the season. He had a couple of stints in the Frontier League and the Atlantic League before that, but it really felt like he figured out American Association pitching very quick.
Yeah, I mean, in the 64 games he played, he had 45 RBIs, which is fourth on the team, just behind Castillo, Del Valle, and Mariaga. That was another one. I think Del Valle was really hot at the beginning of the year and then kind of flew under the radar the rest of the year on that portion of it.
I think we just had a lot of bats that overshadowed him. I thought he was
Yes.
consistently really good throughout the season, and then he just reminds you at the very end of the year just how good he is.
Yes.
He had that power surge and that 3 run inside the park home run, which again another inside tip here. When I originally called that, I thought the center fielder touched the ball. So immediately after I saw it happen, I said, "A 3 run little league home run." And then I look at the point streak because I always have that up. I want to be able to watch the scoring as it happens. And they gave him an inside the park home run, and I'm thinking, wait, really? And I look back at it, letter of the law, he never touched the ball. So technically that's right, but you just have to think a guy like Reggie Pruitt Jr. really should have knocked that ball down. I mean, you play 50 of your games at Franklin Field every year. You think you know how to read the turf, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm ripping on him or anything. That was just a freak play.
You're not wrong. I mean, I was writing it down in my scorebook, listening to you, and I went, "Oh, that there's no way anyone really scored. I think maybe one or two runs would score on that one." And then next thing I look up, the bases are cleared. We have three more runs on the board. I went, "What the heck happened?" They showed a replay. I went, "How did that happen?" But then I remembered, oh yeah, they're playing on artificial turf. But by the way, I hate artificial turf for baseball. But that's one of those like, yeah, you should have just
I'm
not
not the
played that.
biggest fan of it either, but I do get it.
Yeah. The only one I really get is Cleburne just because it's so freaking hot down there.
Yeah.
um, but I think
You kind of have to.
I think watching that series against Milwaukee, Mariaga really played a lot of the ball safe just because of that bounce, and I think it was just one of those situations where Pruitt was like, I got to get this ball, and the next thing you go goes flying 50 feet over his
Game
head.
on the line kind of goes out the window. Like, I got to make a play.
Yep. That was the crazy thing is like
So
he even jumped for the ball and it went over his mitt. That was the crazy how high that ball actually went.
it was. Just thinking back on it, I'm still shocked that it happened. I thought, oh, that's a 2 run single.
Yeah.
We're winning this game now. Wait, we got another run? How'd that happen?
Yeah. You know, the Gio Diaz breaking the stolen base record, I think was held for what think almost 8 years.
The stolen base record itself.
Yeah, the stolen base record itself.
Yeah, that was a 20-year-old record.
Was it 20? Was it when that
It was set in 2003.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was 2003 or how I went back. I had to really search for it. I wasn't positive. I know
I
there was.
also had the benefit of looking at my own team record book whenever I broadcast, so it's a little
That
bit fresher in my mind because I was pulling it up all the time.
Well, because they had it broken down to when they were in the Northern League, and then they had it broken down to when they were in the American Association, and then you had to find which one was older and which one was broke. So I think I got the one when they were in the American Association confused with the one in.
Yeah, because the previous high in the American Association, I believe, was 30, and two guys got it at the same.
Yes,
That
yeah,
was
that's
2012. So, I mean, the same thing happened when Sam Abbott got to 13 home runs, and we posted about it. And I know about this because I didn't make the graphic. I was just in charge of making sure it got distributed. But single season American Association franchise home run record. Then some guy on Facebook says, "Wait, what happened to Christian Guerrero?" No, in the American Association, there is a separate time period at play here.
Yeah, that's always the confusing part is when you get in the two different leagues.
No, it's a technicality.
Yeah, that's I think around like how did wait I don't know I'm just gonna go with it. I'm still new to this and sure we'll go with it. So
Well, thankfully he broke that record too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's no
Thankfully
confusion.
he did. Yeah, that was fun. But seeing Gio play, every time he got on, he just looked like he was going to steal. And I thought for a while he was going to compete with Brian Torres. And then I think for a little bit, I think he got caught stealing a couple times, got picked off a couple times. I think he kind of got a little skittish, but towards the end of the year, he started to really come back to stealing that bag and the base and that kind of stuff. So he's always been an intrigue. He's been the most consistent player this year. I don't,
I would agree with
I I know at the beginning of the year, I think it took him a couple games to really get a hit and really get going, but he was always on base. He could play anywhere on the field, which kind of sucks that, he got robbed of an all-star this year because I think he could have been one of those players, but I think he just jumped around so much that it was
that was
difficult
the
for him
unfortunate thing. They wrote him in at DH. It was a really stacked DH
yeah.
field. And as good as he was, he just didn't have a lot of the counting stats that a lot of guys have and a lot of guys look at. And to that point, I'd watched him play 50 to 60 games at maximum. Hill Alexander was the guy that ended up getting that spot. I'd only watched him play 6 times. So I can guarantee you that's a common sentiment around the league. We didn't play Chicago until after the All-Star break the first time, so they never got to see him play. I can tell you for a fact that he got written in at second base. Logan Watkins, the Cleveland manager, told me he wrote him in. So it's not like he didn't get all-star votes, but it just felt like to the casual fan who didn't see him play all that much, he kind of flew under the radar.
And it really didn't help that, Anthony Barone was the one basically making the roster and Brian Torres was there. And I think at that point,
He's within his rights to choose whoever he wants, so I'm not going to touch
that. That's what kind of sucks. Sometimes I wish it was more like a vote, kind of like the MLB does a little bit. But I also get it at the same time. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of work that you have to get into. I mean, just even doing the fan vote for the 4 players is
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving parts for that a league that's not the MLB. So it's understandable on that portion of it. But who else, looking, at the final roster that we still got going on, that you would see if they come back next year could play a big part in this team, being like maybe a cornerstone for this team for next year?
Well, you have your obvious contenders, Jesus Mariaga, LG Castillo, Gio, we just talked about him, Valera, Del Valle, most definitely. Maybe Miguel Sierra. I think he came on strong towards the end of the year. And in a small sample size as a RailCat, I thought he did pretty well, especially with his plate discipline. I think he'll have a shot to be the guy at shortstop next year. When you take a look at the pitching staff, though, outside of the obvious, the guy who really stood out to me was Joel Valdez.
Mm-hmm.
He had a couple of starts that roughed up his ERA, so maybe it didn't look as good as you would hope. But man, 7th, 8th inning, I know he got a couple of save opportunities too. just felt like whenever he was in the game in a clutch spot, he was going to get those outs. And he flashed a lot of really good stuff. His fastball was touching low 90s. He racked up the strikeouts. I think he had the second most strikeouts of any RailCat reliever this year. It was between him and DJ. I haven't looked at the numbers in a while, but I know those two were neck and neck. Odie Nunez was around that as well. And I think he's going to be a big part of this bullpen going forward too. But Valdez, man, he's got some serious stuff. And that was fun. The way he made hitters look sometimes, it was fun.
Yeah, it was he did beat Wilkinson by one strikeout. He had
That's what I
58.
thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. He just threw more innings. That's why, because he got those starts.
Yeah, he played in 42 games, or my bad, 37, but he had 54 innings pitched. And Wilkinson only
Yeah,
had the
it's because he
49.
had those five
Yeah.
starts.
Which I was surprised they I mean, I know at the beginning his numbers were a little inflated with the starting, but I was surprised they when Irwin got hurt that they took him out of the starting rotation and rotated more people. And I thought he pitched really well when he was starting, so maybe he wasn't comfortable in that role.
He did. I just think he's just better suited to be a late inning guy, anyways. And he flourished in that role.
I know another guy that really impressed me at the beginning of the year. His ERA was after his first game was, I think, 27, was Odie Nunez, and he really impressed me. I thought he was maybe the most improved player, I would say. But I mean, really, he only had a spell of where it was kind of rough for a little bit, but then after that, he was lights out the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think it just took him a little bit to adapt to the American Association, but I think maybe it was either Fargo, Moorhead, or Winnipeg. I'm not 100% sure which one it was, but maybe it was a little earlier because I remember reciting this stat on a broadcast. But over the last 2 to 3 months of the season, he dropped his ERA 4 points. And I think it's because he trusted his fastball more. He used that to set up his off speed stuff, and then it just clicked. And that's what really put him in Lamar's inner circle in terms of relievers he trusts. And it paid off. He had one spot start in Kansas City, too. He had to make it in the back half of a double header, and he was a little bit rocky at times. He had a couple of walks, but man, he was absolutely lights out with runners on base. I think he really impressed me too. And there were points where it looked like he was overmatched, but at the end of the year, he looked like he was overmatching everybody else. He was electric late on.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, the last highest stat that he had was against Cleburne. He was at a 931, and that was
That must have been early June.
yeah, it was June 11th, and then he dropped it all the way down to a 482. So,
And in a league in the American Association where hitting is ahead of pitching, 482 in this league is like, say, a 4 in Major League Baseball.
yeah, yeah. Most of the time, I think after that game, that was the last time he gave up 4 runs, and then the time after that was against Cleburne again. But after that game, it was either 1-2 or nothing. So he was very impressive. I think that's why the bullpen this year just really shocked me. I mean, if we had the lead going into the late innings, I think that was a big struggle last year, is that we couldn't find anyone to really shut down the teams later on. Why this team kind of struggled a little bit out of the gate, but then would come back and make a push for it. And if the bullpen had just 1 or 2 runs to spare, the offense would come through eventually.
Yeah, definitely. It felt like bullpen was this team's biggest strength. And after that, it was starting pitching. I truly do believe that, but I don't think there were any points this year where I didn't trust the bullpen to get the job done. Obviously, it's baseball. They're not going to convert every single time. And I will point out, though, I might be contradicting myself here, but DJ did not blow a single save. He went a perfect 12 for 12. But it felt like the bullpen was, for the most part, sharp.
Yeah, I mean, going to Wilkinson, I mean, really, if it wasn't for the last game that he played against Milwaukee, giving up the 5 runs, his ERA would have.
He was put into an impossible situation.
Yeah, that was
work in against a team that was hitting literally everything in sight. That was just That was just not a good situation. They were red hot.
Yeah, no, that was it was just one of those because he had an ERA sub of 2 and then it jumped it up almost a full point
Still finished
after.
under three though.
But yeah, still finished under 3. Had a heck of a season. I know that his save numbers weren't super high, but I'm surprised that he really didn't get reliever of the year. To be honest, I think he's been the most consistent person outside of.
I would agree, but at the same time, there are a lot of other factors at play. I voted
Yeah,
for him personally because I've seen him a lot and I really felt like he deserved it. But for someone that doesn't watch anyone really as extensively as your own team, you rely a lot on counting stats to vote for awards like these. And I
yeah,
think that's a big reason why Charlie Hasty got it. Plus, you have to account for the fact that he pitches at the Birdcage, which is the most hitter friendly
yeah.
park in the entire league. And he obviously deserves it. Obviously, I wish it were DJ. I voted for DJ. DJ's my guy. But, if a guy wins an award in this league, he deserves it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
No, I'm not that. Yeah, that's it. Especially at the
The one I
Birdcage.
really think he should have won, though, was a rookie pitcher. But
Yeah, I would.
Wes Muir has been very good for a year and a half, so I get that.
Yeah, that's always the weird thing about with the rookie of the year. I know it's the time of service and games played, and it gets in a bunch of other stuff. But like DJ was
There's a
like
lot of blurred lines.
was like a true rookie. I mean, even Gio. I mean, that was even that. I was
I'm not
expecting.
gonna lie, I voted for him too.
If it wasn't DJ, I was really expecting. Gio to be. I know it's a different in that. I think who was
Yeah.
it? From
It was
Winnipeg.
Jason Cruz,
Yeah. So
who I
that
voted for a postseason All Star. So that's a very deserving pick.
well, yeah, that just kind of sucks. Like with this team that not making the postseason, not getting those kind of All Star. I know Winnipeg didn't make the All Star, which I think was throwing some confusion in with that because I think everyone else was that made the
Well,
All
Winnipeg
Star
got
team.
two. They got Cruz and Murphy.
Okay, well Murphy was kind of understanding. He was even going up for the MVP.
Yeah, yeah, he
So
was.
that's a little bit understandable in that portion. I think, but it threw a little quite a few fans off with him getting that for third base at least. But I mean, I
Well,
get
if
it.
you watch him play, you don't think that, but then
Yeah,
again, the majority of people that watch the Winnipeg Goldeyes are normally Winnipeg Goldeyes fans. So there's a lot of, I guess, like I said, there's counting stat bias that I think he accounts for, and then a lot of that plays in his favor. But then again, he also deserves it. So having watched him play a bunch, I mean, he got his first pro hit against the Railcats, his first at bat. I'm thinking, man, this guy's tough. So he deserves it. He
Oh
absolutely
yeah,
does.
yeah. I'm not saying that anyone on this that won a reward or whatever the case doesn't
No,
deserve it. I'm
I
just
know, I know. I'm
I,
playing devil's advocate
did
here.
play devil's advocate a little bit here. That's why I kind of wish sometimes that the league doesn't always have like the off days are the same throughout the season because you don't ever get to really watch everyone else play when everyone's off on a Monday. So it's just that's always disappointing. But I mean, yet again, I could probably see why they do it. But that's if you're just watching one team and you're not bouncing around, you don't always get to see everyone at a consistent level on that portion of it.
That's completely understandable, right?
Yeah,
It's obviously you want to put your own team first, and if your team's playing at the same time as everyone else, you're going to watch your own team. That's just human nature, or the nature of being a sports fan, I guess.
yeah. So just kind of wrapping up the season in your green and white ribbon. What would you just if someone were to ask you, oh, how did the Railcats do this year? What would your description of the team be?
That's a tough question, but I would say they're retooling. This was really Lamar's first year. Last year, he was taking over a team full of Greg Taggart's players and trying to figure things out. This was his real first year in
Mhm.
control. And as much as everyone in that front office, everyone in that locker room wanted to make the playoffs, you can excuse them for not, I guess. It's disappointing, but you get it. Lamar is still finding his footing in this league. he's only been here for 2 years. You got guys managing teams that have been here for significantly longer. They understand how this works a little bit better. I get that he was working for the St. Paul Saints for the longest time too, but the league changed a bunch from the time that he left the Saints to the time that he joined the RailCats, and the reshuffling back in 2020 certainly plays a part into that. So he's reacclimating to the American Association. He's still figuring out what works, what doesn't work. But I think this next season, his third year, his real second year in charge, that's the one where he really makes that push. I think the next year, he's seen this year 2 years. He's seen this league 2 years. He knows what to expect. He knows how teams play, and now he has a better understanding of what types of players win in this league.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been saying it all year long. I know, talking amongst the fans, a lot of them have kind of been a little bit disappointed with the result of this year, but really this is his first actual year of trying to build a roster. I think he did a good job at it. I just don't think some of the pieces fell into place that, you necessarily would have thought of, but it could be just players adjusting to the league and, so on and so forth. So I would say really next year is his, not make it or break it year, but the real testament of what he's kind of gained. So I would agree with this being his actual first year, because he did inherit a Taggart roster that wasn't, necessarily the best, to say the least. But he put his own pieces into it. So I would agree with what you're
The way I
saying.
say it, the way I see it, it just wasn't his.
Yeah,
I wasn't here before 2022, so I can't speak to that, but it just wasn't his. Now he has guys that he feels he trusts.
yeah. You see it. I mean, he looks like he wants people that are hardworking, wants to show up in a professional environment every day. That was the one conversation I had with him before the season last year when they went to Off Square to announce the beer that they were going to sell at the ballpark, which I was disappointed wasn't this year. But that's beside the point. He said that he really wants to bring in, it wants to be a professional environment, and even talking to Matt Brunson about that was his, Lamar wants this to be a professional team, and yes, it's a professional, it's a professional league, so you want the players to be professional, and I see it with the players' Instagram stories. I just saw Gio Diaz, in the batting cage swinging again, Valero working out. You're starting to see that, even the off season's only a week old, they're still in the batting cage, they're still working out. So it's
You're
good to
right.
see that's the kind of
Yeah.
players that he wants.
Granted, again, I'll throw this into the mix, but they're both preparing to play winter ball, so there's another intention to that. And I know there are a lot more guys on this team that are going to follow. But you're right. And you bring up Matt Brunson. He was my roommate this year on the road. This is a conversation we had countless times. So I'm just reliving that in my mind right now. But you're right. This is a pro league. And obviously, you should have time to adjust. You should have time to figure out what your role is and what works here, what doesn't work here. But at the end of the day, you're judged by the final score and whether or not you have more runs than the other team. So I think he's well justified in doing that.
Right. So with the season wrapped up, there's one thing I do want to, a couple things I want to discuss before I let you go. But the one thing that I think threw every RailCats fan for a loop was the Chicago fireworks debacle. Because we were all confused on what happened in that situation. I think you guys were, even because the umpires just left. Everyone just left, and we had no idea what was going on. I knew there was fireworks, but it was like still 15 minutes before the fireworks, and I I was completely confused. I was asking everyone, and they're like, we don't know.
Okay, I can explain that. It's because the dogs don't control when they go off. The village of Rosemont does.
Mhm.
The village of Rosemont decides, hey, we're going to have fireworks at 9:30. If the game is still going on at that point, we're going to treat it like a rain delay. And granted, in my opinion, maybe the umpires called the game off a little too soon. And what makes the whole thing look even crazier is that the next five batters were all outs. So you could have played the next five batters and maybe you get
Yeah.
the game by 9:30. But the next time we had a fireworks display in Chicago, the game ended at around 9, and they didn't do the fireworks until 9:30 still. So the fans were just being entertained on the field for a bit. So it's not like it's an inconsistent thing. It's just the Dogs operate one way, the Village of Rosemont operates one way, the Railcats in the city of Gary operate another. It's not anything wrong. It's just different and different set of rules that two teams have to abide by within their local cities.
It was just from a fan perspective, it was just the oddest thing because you saw the umpire point to both dugouts and they just walked. And I don't know if I had your broadcast on or if I had the Dogs broadcast on because sometimes the AATV you don't always get the away broadcast. So I think I had you on though, but it was just one of those like the umpires are just leaving, and I was just like, why are they leaving? Where are they going? And they just kept walking, and everyone just in their hand just walking around like I don't know what's going on. So that was just a crazy experience, but I think that was the first of their times because a lot of Dogs fans are fans with the Railcats and stuff like that. So I'm in some group chats and they were kind of discussing that, and they're like, we've never had this happen either. So it was like a first for everyone.
Yeah, I was talking to the Dogs broadcast crew about this too, and they were shocked the game was called as early as it was. They knew the fireworks display was going to be at 9:30, but they also didn't expect the game to get stopped at 9:15.
Yeah, that was a fun one. It was very interesting, a funny moment to kind of go laugh upon after the fact. So with the fan base, I know Chuck gave you a special present, and this one shocked me because typically he's been good about like showing me his pens and showing him like players and stuff like that. When I saw your post on Twitter, I was like, oh, good for him. I'm glad that Ryan got a pen. You know, how special is that? Just it's a pen, I get it, but it's a handcrafted pen, and how special was that for you?
Oh, it was so cool. I had seen a couple that he had given out to some people. I know he made Zach Narrier one to commemorate his home run derby win, and I'm thinking, man, that's the coolest thing. I, that is a very well crafted pen. I want to use it now. And then he posted on Twitter. He says, "Hey, I never show my work early, but Ryan, what do you think?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, that's a cool pen, man. Nice work." And then he gives it to me, and I'm thinking, "Wait, this was for me? I thought you were just showing it off."
Yeah, that was one of those. He started showing me. I'm like, oh, these are really cool. And he's like, yeah, this is for Diaz, stolen base and Castillo. I mean, obviously he hosted Diaz and Castillo, so he was close with them in general. But it was just interesting to see him give that out to them, and then random players. I think he gave one to Butch. Um, I think he gave one to Stu as well. So he was just kind of giving them all out to different. Henry got one. Sweeney got one, I believe. So it was just interesting to see that aspect of it.
He's got a gift.
Yeah, he does. And then Paulie and Jim and all the rest of the Rowdy Railcats cowbell crew all signed balls for everyone that has been with the team more than a year. And then I was signing them as well. And then I saw your name come across. How special, another special gift, but to have fans sign a ball and give it to you.
It means the world, honestly. As a broadcaster, you want to represent the fans well, and obviously you work for the team, so you have to keep their interests in mind as well. But you also want to develop that relationship with the fan base, and I realize that having been in Northwest Indiana for a while, I worked in 2 seasons with the Midwest Collegiate League before it became the Northern League. Before I started with the Railcats, so I came into this job knowing what Northwest Indiana is like, knowing what type of people live here, how prideful they are of what they have, and how prideful they are of being from Northwest Indiana. But I just came in thinking, okay, I called the game. I thought I did a good job, and I'll just build upon it from there. I didn't realize that other people thought the same way. And to be honest, I didn't really start thinking about it until I really got in with the Rowdy Railcat Cowbell crew. So getting that baseball at the end of the year, just knowing how much they appreciated everything that I did, everything that Zach did, everything that this entire organization did, it meant the world to me. They're very special people. I love knowing them. I love how they aren't just fans of the RailCats, that they're fans of the entire league. I know the Railroaders tried to poke fun at us when they went down to Cleveland last year and bought Cleveland jerseys and took photos in them. But I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing ever. How many
Yeah.
times are you going to have a fan of a team go down to see them play in Texas and chop it up with the fans down there and continue to build those relationships? Dogs, Cougars, yeah, I get it. Those are day trips. Milkmen, yeah, you can stay overnight. It's not that bad. But Cleburne, what's there to make fun of? That's like I mean, they weren't really doing that, but
Yeah.
that's the coolest thing. They were down here to see us, but also they're here to have a good time in Cleburne. I mean, that's the coolest thing. I love that about this league. And the Rowdy Railcat Cowbell crew really embodies that. And I think that's what makes them so special, that they all want the same things for everybody in this league. And that's to have a good time when you come to a game. And if you're on the field, obviously have success, maybe not always at the expense of your own team's success, but also make it out of here and back to an affiliate and give yourself another shot of playing in the majors. So that's what I really appreciate about them, and getting that baseball at the end of the year. It's just the icing on the cake. They're such a passionate fan base, and they've always been very good to me. And I wanted to show that love back, and I didn't realize that that meant so much to them too, which made it mean so much more to me.
Yeah, they are very passionate, and everything that they do is you always know where they're at, even if you're on the road.
I could always
They're
hear the cow. I could
Yes, you
always
always
know.
hear the cowbells. Even they may not be Railcats fans. I know a lot of Dogs fans. They get cowbells as well. So it's always interesting to see that kind
I
of.
actually didn't know that.
Yeah, they we got I don't know if you got one of the wristbands that Paulie made, but it says Rowdy Rail Cowboy Crew on it. He gave a
I
handful out
don't
to.
think he gave me one, but I
I
mean, he
know he
gave.
gave a handful out to fans, and it was one of those like, this isn't given, it's earned. Luckily I got one, so I'm in. But he gave a handful to Dogs fans, and one of I think his name is Mike Davis. He was at work one day, and he took a picture of going, got my band on. So it's just interesting to see that it's just not just strictly for the Railcats, that the fan base grows, further outside of that, just because people are fans of the American Association and they want to see it thrive.
Yeah, and they also want to see their favorite players do well, whether or not they're on your team.
Yeah, I
The
always
league's
come.
so great. The players are so accessible that you
Yeah,
can talk to them a bunch.
yeah, they are. They're right there, and they're always willing to, if it's just a simple smile or a nod. They're always, I've always had this philosophy: is anyone in the American Association, that you want to see them thrive anyways, because you want to see them get to that next level. You want them to see to get to the affiliated ball, and maybe one day, maybe potentially see them make a debut in the MLB, or return back to the MLB, that kind of stuff.
Oh, most
Um,
definitely.
so two more things. Who do you think in the off season, maybe potentially gets picked up by a club? Who do you really see that has a chance? We all want them to get a chance, but who on this team that really sticks out to you?
I would say Jesus, DJ, Geo, LG.
Okay. I the,
Obviously, I want to see them all get picked up
yeah,
here, but I think if those four get picked up, I would not at all be surprised.
yeah, that's the hope. You obviously want to see them come back, but if they're get picked up by an affiliated team, you also understand, and we
That'd be
root for
great.
them
I'd,
there
I'd
as
love to
well.
watch him play in the majors one day.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
I really
At least from my
thought.
perspective, you become friends with these guys, so you want them to succeed
Yes.
because, well, they're your friend. You want what's best for them too.
I know. Really, I thought after the baseball World Classic, that Mariaga, really got some good looks. I know his batting wasn't the best, but he showcased his arm, and that kind of stuff. I really thought he had a high hopes going into this season, that he was going to get picked up, even maybe even before that. I mean, he's still young. I think the Diamondbacks kind of gave up on him a little bit too early, but
COVID was tough for a lot of players,
yeah.
especially where he was at in short season.
All right. So last question. Sort of last question. Now, you had Zach Letson on with you in the booth this year. I know he was at a couple Dogs games with you. I know he mostly was at home. But how was working with him, and maybe did you learn some things from him, and you kind of show him the ropes a little bit?
Oh man, I loved it. He really stood out to me early in the process. The biggest hurdle to overcome was he's not from Northwest Indiana. He's not
Mhm.
from Chicago. How is he going to live here? And that was something that I really wanted to work with him on during the months leading up to the season to make sure he had a place to stay so he could do this job because I really believed that he was the right guy. And it took maybe one or two games for me to think, wait, this guy's even better than I thought he was. So not only was he really good at what he does, but he was such a hard worker during the lead up to games. He was there to reel me in a bunch whenever I got like really animated about the team, in the office or in the press box, what have you. But he was such a talented broadcaster, but also just a better person and a great friend and someone you really want to see succeed. I thought he improved so much over the course of the season, and he started from a place where I thought he was really good already. So I'm very excited for what he has in store going forward. I miss him like hell already. But I know he's back down in Florida. He's got a lot lined up. I'm excited for him, and I'm rooting for him. He knows he has a resource in me wherever he decides to go.
That's fair. Um, so I don't know. I know on the baseball side of like the players, it's basically a 1 year contract sort of deal. Is it the same thing with broadcasting? Is it just you kind of wait for the off season and before it starts, or you already know? Is it one of those like, hey, I got another job opportunity. Sorry, I got to leave you. Or, how is that process for you?
It's a little bit different. Obviously, it varies per league, per team, but a lot of that picks up maybe a month or two after the season ends, and then the carousel of jobs really begin. But to be completely honest with you, I'm not really thinking about that.
That's I know you
What I'm
got.
thinking most about is the game I'm going to call next, and that's coming up on Thursday. So I'm mostly thinking about that. I'm not thinking about my future. I mean, I'm thinking about my future, obviously, but I'm not thinking about that much right now. I'm thinking about what can I do to best prepare myself for my next broadcast, and what can I do to make sure that I'm continuing to get work? What can I do to make sure that I'm continuing to show off my range? What can I do to just make sure that I put in as much as I need to do to make this the best broadcast I could possibly make it? So I'm really not thinking about that too much right now.
That's fine. I just didn't know if it was like a 3 year contract or a 2 year contract kind of deal where it's like,
It depends on where you're at with your team.
okay, like I just didn't know if it was like one of those like, hey, we're gonna keep you on the books, but if you're moving on to bigger, better things, we completely understand and we'll start looking. So I just didn't know if it was just how the players are. It's like we have the rights to your contract, so if you're coming back here, but you necessarily don't have to.
Yeah, that's the pro and con of being a broadcaster. If you're in a league like the American Association, you're not tied to them outside of the season, but you also can't have your contract picked up. I guess maybe that's not the right analogy. It's more so, I guess, if you're an affiliated broadcaster, you can't get cut, you can't get released, but you also can't get called up. You're
Yeah,
stuck to the team. But at the same time, you can jump organizations in the offseason. And in my case, you can jump teams or jump leagues in the offseason. But like I said, that's not where my mind's at right now.
that's fair. That's good, fair point. So just because your next step is obviously you got some football games coming up, but you're going back to Vermont, correct?
I am, yeah. I actually took care of my housing last month, and I'm excited to move into a new place.
Wait, is there you can plug away all you want with Vermont because I love watching listen to you, and I know I think ESPN Plus is starting to kind of pick up that portion of it, because that's where I got a lot of the BU games because just the hockey in general. So is there anything you want to talk about a little bit about the team or highs and those guys? They were pretty good last year,
Well,
so
yeah, yeah. Well, first and foremost, I broadcast games exclusively on Learfield. So for
okay.
women's basketball, it's strictly radio. I do get a couple of freelance gigs every now and again. I got to call men's soccer playoff game at UVM. I got to do a hockey game as well. Not as much as I thought I was going to get just because I was brand new, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I get a little bit more outside work. But, we'll see. This is a team that's defending an America East Conference title, got to play in the NCAA tournament last year, and now they are the standard. So the target's on their back. I'm interested to see, one, how they deal with the pressure of being the champs, but also to the victors go the spoils. We've got a preseason, or maybe not preseason tournament. I don't know exactly what you call it in basketball, but we've got a Thanksgiving tournament in Florida, which I'm really looking forward to. Caitlin Clark is going to be playing in that tournament, so fingers crossed I get a chance to watch her play. But that comes with it. You're the champion of a conference. Perhaps you're looked at as a more favorable non-conference game. So I haven't delved too much into the schedule just yet. I've been trying to detox a little bit more after baseball season in the meantime, but I'm excited. Winning breeds winning, in my opinion, and I'm excited to see how this team, who has a majority of that America East Conference title core coming back, how do they respond? I'm really excited for that.
Well, we wish the Lady Vermont team well in their return to being champions, and you as well, hopefully getting some other jobs outside of just the broadcasting of the basketball. Before I let you go, is there anything that you have on your mind that you want to say, or anything piques your interest?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know when this is going to come out, but depending on when it does, Shana Tova, the Jewish New Year's coming up on Saturday, and if there are any Jewish listeners or viewers like myself, Shana Tova Umetuka, I hope you have a happy Rosh Hashanah. And also to the fans, thank you. I didn't really get a chance to thank you as much at the end of the broadcast, but now I feel like I have a good opportunity to do that here. But I think I've said this before, but if not for fans, I don't have a job. You guys make what I do worth it, and you guys make my job so much more enjoyable every single day. So I owe a lot to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, as I will represent the fans in this and saying thank you for everything that you do for the team, that you've done for me, at least in this year, really gaining my confidence and trying to get people in interviews, and especially hooking me up with Matt Brunson and all that other stuff as
Yeah,
well. So
sorry
I
about that.
appreciate your help on that. And I wish you the best of a good best of the off season. And if not in the RailCats booth, I hope to hear you somewhere higher up than the American Association. So thank you again, Ryan Zimmerman, the voice of the RailCats, for joining me on this podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I always enjoy my time on here.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.